Within an hour, we were hit with airstrikes, satellite reconnaissance, and cyber attacks. I never imagined it would be this hard. His commissar wept on camera. The scoreboard stood at 32 defeats to 1, with 70% casualties. Zhurihe did not prove the People's Liberation Army could fight. It delivered a verdict Beijing may still not have fixed. Zhurihe Combined Arms Training Base occupies 1,066 square kilometers of Inner Mongolia steppe, an area larger than New York City. The coordinates, 42 degrees 14 minutes 23 seconds north, 112 degrees 40 minutes 59 seconds east, place it on the edge of the Gobi, far from civilian scrutiny. Its perimeter encloses a landscape engineered for one purpose: to simulate the terrain, infrastructure, and chaos of modern war. At the core sits a full-scale mock city. Satellite analysis from June 2024 confirms a grid of streets, a cloverleaf highway interchange, and a 1,200-meter runway. The centerpiece is a 5-story, 61-meter-tall replica of Taiwan's presidential office, dimensions matching the Taipei original within a 2% margin. Flanking it, a circular dome mirrors the judicial yuan. A 280-meter tunnel runs between these two structures, hidden beneath compacted soil, designed for rehearsing decapitation strikes against political leadership. 30 concrete and steel reinforcement anchor the buildings, with procurement records listing over 1,000 cubic meters of excavation for the tunnel alone. A 60-meter Eiffel Tower-style lattice stands sentinel at the city's edge, serving as an observation and communications node for exercise controllers. The airstrip and logistics hub, visible in Maxar imagery, support rapid deployment of mechanized columns and airmobile units. Medical complex and field hospitals cluster to the north, their raised concrete slabs and modular HVAC units registering heat signatures well above the surrounding desert, evidence of continuous, high-tempo operations. Laser sensor pillars and smoke emitter emplacements dot the mock city's perimeter. Each is mapped in the IOS-GRGO referenced evidence pack, their locations chosen to create sensor-saturated kill zones and simulate the electronic fog of war. The fidelity is not cosmetic. Foundation depth, reinforced slabs, and tunnel backfill confirm that Zhurihe's structures are built to withstand live fire and demolition drills. Every element of the complex is calibrated to strip away scripted comfort. The grid, the tunnels, the command centers, all are modeled to force units into the dilemmas and disarray of real-world urban combat. The base is not a stage, it is a test bed, built to expose the difference between parade ground discipline and actual fighting power. On April 1, 2014, the People's Liberation Army activated the 195th Mechanized Infantry Brigade at Zhurihe. This was not a standard formation. The unit's lineage traced back to the 1st Armored Division, but its new mandate was explicit: become the enemy. Colonel Xi Jinping, the first commander, issued a mission statement that left no room for ambiguity. His brigade would study the enemies and act like the enemies, treating the United States and NATO as the benchmark for all doctrine, tactics, and command procedures. The 195th was built on a combined arms battalion model, mirroring the United States Brigade combat team structure. Infantry, armor, artillery, air defense, reconnaissance, and electronic warfare elements were fused into a single, self-directed entity. Orders were delivered as mission-type directives, not rigid scripts. The brigade's internal manuals, published in Chinese military journals and later leaked to Western analysts, described the Blue Force as the standard for NATO-style interoperability. Personnel wore the unofficial moniker Wolves of Zhurihe. Their training environment was saturated with laser tag sensors, helmet-mounted smoke ejection modules, and a doctrine that rewarded initiative over obedience. Smoke colors were not just for effect. Red for Red Force casualties, blue for the Wolves, each plume logged in real time for after-action analysis. The brigade reported directly to the Zhurihe Training Base Command during exercises, bypassing traditional group army chains, and was subordinated to the 81st Group Army for administrative purposes. Colonel Xi's approach was uncompromising. Every aspect of the Wolves playbook, from maneuver to cyber operations, was calibrated to expose the vulnerabilities of the Red Forces. The United States was not an abstract adversary, but the reference point for everything from radio discipline to combined arms integration. The Wolves were not there to play a part. They were there to win. The stage was set for the first clash, with a capable, unscripted adversary now embedded inside the mock city. Stride 2014 began as a test of doctrine and ended as a ledger of humiliation. 7 Red Force brigades, each drawn from elite group army units, entered Zhurihe under the eyes of the Central Military Commission. The opposing 195th Mechanized Infantry Brigade, the so-called Wolves, operated under a single directive from Colonel Xi Jinping. He ordered them to study the enemies and act like the enemies. Every maneuver mirrored United States and NATO playbooks. Orders were mission-based, not scripted. The Red Force, by contrast, relied on top-down direction and preset operational sequences. The first phase saw Red Force communications jammed by electromagnetic warfare. Command posts lost contact with forward elements in minutes. Infiltration teams disguised as local civilians, carrying sacks of potatoes and cabbage, breached the perimeter and seized radios. Within 1 hour, the Red Force command structure collapsed. On state television, Colonel Wang Ziqiang gave the only public admission. He said within an hour they were hit with airstrikes, enemy satellite reconnaissance, and cyber attacks. And he never imagined it would be this hard. Battlefield metrics were logged in real time by helmet-mounted laser sensors. Red smoke plumed across the city grid, each cloud marking a simulated casualty. The final tally was 32 simulated battles and 1 Red Force victory. The casualty rate for Red Force units averaged 70%, killed, wounded, or missing in action. Blue Force losses rarely exceeded 15%. In the third phase, simulated carpet bombing and a mock tactical nuclear strike erased the last Red positions. The exercise ended with the Red Force command node overrun and its leadership decapitated by a tunnel breach. Stride 2015 expanded the scale and deepened the verdict. 10 Red Force brigades entered the arena. The Wolves' record was 35 wins and 2 losses. Red Force casualty rates climbed above 70%. The after-action report, authored by Senior Colonel Yang Baoyu, listed 3 failures: weak command authority, inefficient inter-branch collaboration, and the inability to employ new technology. The numbers left no room for interpretation. The world's largest standing army had been rendered combat ineffective in a single hour. The scoreboard became an open wound, demanding attention at the highest levels of command. The 195th Mechanized Infantry Brigade's record at Zhurihe was no accident. Their approach was built on a doctrine borrowed from US and NATO manuals, then adapted and drilled into every level. Colonel Xi Jinping's directive was clear: study the enemy, become the enemy. Each battalion, from tanks to electronic warfare, operated independently, guided by mission-type orders that set objectives but left the method to whoever was closest to the action. The Blue Force operated that way. The Red Force, by contrast, waited for orders from above, punished improvisation, and clung to rigid scripts. The Wolves' advantage was technical and procedural. Helmet-mounted laser sensors, provided by Sichuan Aerospace, tracked every simulated casualty. Blue smoke marked a Blue Force loss, and red smoke marked a Red Force hit. Every incident was logged instantly, feeding into analytics that left no room for denial. The numbers spoke for themselves. In stride 2014 and 2015, Red Force casualties topped 70%, while Blue Force rarely broke 15%. Out of 33 battles, Red lost 32. Collapse came in under an hour. Senior Colonel Yang Baoyu's internal report distilled the defeat into 3 points: command paralysis, isolated branches, and wasted technology. Junior officers froze without orders. Teams failed to coordinate. Advanced C4 ISR systems sat unused. Wang Ziqiang on state television summed up the shock. He said that within an hour, they were hit with airstrikes, enemy satellite reconnaissance, and cyber attacks, and that he never imagined it would be this hard. The scoreboard was unforgiving. Every plume of smoke became a data point. For the PLA leadership, Zhurihe was not a drill. It was a controlled demolition of old illusions. Reform was no longer optional. It was written in smoke and silence. In November 2015, the Central Military Commission issued a reform blueprint that dissolved the PLA's 4 general departments and created 15 new functional organs. By February 2016, the 7 military regions had been replaced by 5 theater commands: Eastern, Southern, Western, Northern, and Central. The brigade, not the division, became the primary combat unit. Orders from the Joint Staff Department required every theater to adopt the Blue Force model pioneered at Zhurihe. The language was explicit: joint operations, mission-type orders, and integrated cyber-electronic warfare were now the standard for the entire force. In August 2017, Xi Jinping's reforms were staged for the world when the PLA's 90th anniversary parade rolled through Zhurihe's mock city. Newly reflagged brigades, fresh insignia, and the 195th Wolves marched past the replica of Taiwan's presidential office. The parade was less a celebration than a public audit. The world's largest standing army, reshaped by humiliation, now had to prove it could fight as a modern joint force. Yet the paradox deepened. In October 2025, high-resolution satellite imagery captured the expansion of Zhurihe's mock Taipei. A new 280-meter tunnel connected the Judicial Yuan replica to the presidential office, reinforcing the base's role as the rehearsal ground for decapitation strikes. Civilian structures and upgraded electromagnetic emitters appeared along the perimeter, signaling a renewed focus on urban warfare and spectrum dominance. But the upgrades did not silence doubts. In February 2026, the PLA announced an immediate 30-day suspension of all Zhurihe operations, citing a structural failure in the tunnel network. Simultaneously, CMC Vice Chairman Zhang Youqia, longtime overseer of the OPFOR program, was placed under investigative review and removed from his post. No full report was released. Satellite data showed the base inert. No vehicle movement, no active emitters, no heat signatures from the medical complex. The reforms had produced a new structure, but the verdict on its effectiveness was left hanging. The base that once forced the PLA to confront its own limits now stood silent, its future, and the military's true readiness, uncertain. Today, Zhurihe's 195th Wolves still model United States adversaries. Xi Jinping orders his brigade to fight like the enemy, while Yang Baoyu's report confirms 70% casualty rates, 1-hour collapses and defeats by a ratio of 32-1. The verdict stands. If the script fails, so does command. The next exercise is never just a rehearsal.